excited to be here for the second time now at the CLDA, and especially as we are growing our customer base over here in the US. So we as BetterMile, as a technology provider for delivery companies, with a particular focus on the final mile, we see, of course, the importance of AI for our solutions too. So we use AI and machine learning tools when it comes to creating smart delivery windows for receivers that can narrow down dynamically down to 15 minutes throughout the day of delivery. And on top of that, we also allow for on-the-fly changes across our solutions, both from driver perspective to factor in changing traffic, incoming pickup orders, but also from receiver side to adjust the delivery location, to even adjust the delivery window last minute. And this is actually where we see a really good synergy of customer experience on the one hand and productivity on the other hand. So we see these productivity gains, of course, on driver side through constantly optimized route or route optimization, but we also see productivity gains through receiver engagement, as we see that they would come back and refresh that information up to 10 times on average on the day of delivery. So they follow that the vehicle live position on a map, they see their narrowing delivery window, and this is how you can actually prevent failed delivery attempts. In case of signature requirements, they would anticipate the driver as they arrive. In case they're not at home, this is also how you can prevent porch piracy. And of course, this is also how you can create an engaging customer experience that even outperforms the likes of Amazon, while keeping your costs under control and your business profitable. So yeah, we do see the benefits of embedding AI, especially in those critical final few hours until handover, until delivery. And me personally, I'm really eager to hear more about use cases of today's panel as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
So now I'd like to take a minute to introduce our panelists. Going left to right, we'll start with Stuart from Dispatch Science. Stuart is the Director of Solutions for Dispatch Science, a leading tech company that is revolutionizing the transportation management software industry for last mile couriers and delivery businesses. Leveraging AI-enabled algorithms, Dispatch Science simplifies and streamlines all aspects of dispatching and delivery operations for transporters and couriers. Stuart leads the solutions team, which helps clients understand their technical capabilities of the product and align them with their business requirements. This ensures that the implementation of Dispatch Science maximizes the total economic impact for clients, delivering tangible benefits and creating additional business value. Stuart is a digital transformation product evangelist who has helped companies across the globe understand the value of supporting their staff with next-generation technology. He spent his early career in last mile and reverse logistics. Seeing the power of data, Stuart then moved into healthcare and big data analytics, focusing on supporting companies during the IPO stage. Today, Stuart is passionate about using AI-powered solutions in the last mile to transform the customer experience, and particularly excited to see how historical data can be used to predict future events and derive insights that make the last mile more efficient. Thank you, Stuart. Next to Stuart is Roberto Ciccone of Drive and Informatica. Roberto's career is marked by groundbreaking achievements, including the global launch of IBM's inaugural speech product and the creation of the first IBM product for realistic fabric rendering in CAD design. Ciccone was a pioneer in the development of dialogue-based infotainment systems in cars, laying the groundwork for today's Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and ChatGPT-powered systems. As program director at IBM and ChatGPT-powered system, as program director at IBM, Watson, he led the team that clinched the first victory of AI in Jeopardy! In 2011. His innovative applications of AI extend to healthcare, contact centers, and financial services customer support, addressing differential diagnosis, smart agent deployment, and more. A lot of words here. Co-founding Drive, Ciccone turned his focus to driver attention management for cars and commercial vehicles. Leveraging computer vision, speech, machine learning, and AI, he aims to ensure a safe and effective transition from traditional to fully self-driving vehicles. His passion for cars and high-tech his passion for cars and high-tech fuels his aspiration to transform our interaction with personal mobility systems and the world around us. His aspiration is embodied in Drive, a testament to his commitment to reinvention and progress. In addition to Drive, Ciccone is also the co-founder and CSO at Informatica, an AI-based clinical decision support and triage tool as part of a medical guidance platform, assisting healthcare providers and insurance companies in delivering efficient and effective care. Last but not least, Nitin Gupta of Beans AI. Nitin is the founder of Beans AI, an AI-powered location cloud revolutionizing last mile delivery and the last 100 feet of arrival for first responders. Beans AI powers address data, routing, and dispatch for several leading companies in the US like FedEx, OnTrack, LSO, Instacart, Fetch Package, Courier Express, and more. Previously, Nitin led financial intelligence at Uber, which uncovered key metrics and allowed senior membership to make superior financial decisions. Prior to Uber, Nitin founded the Google On-Demand search group that integrated rideshare, food ordering, and appointment booking into Google. Let's have a round for our esteemed panelists. All right, that was a mouthful. Real quick, who here has ever ridden in a self-driving car? There you go, all right, keep the hands up. Who lives in a city that has self-driving cars but hasn't tried one yet? Okay, we're getting better. Who's used ChatGPT? There we go. Okay, who's used Siri or Alexa? All right, so you guys are all experts. There's not really anything we need to tell you, but we'll give it a try and give it a start here. So, Roberto, you want to take us through the history of AI?
Yeah, very quickly. AI was not born last year when OpenAI decided to announce that their GPT 3.5 and 4 products. It's been I would say, a long-term vision that people started working in the 50s, 60s, last century. And then over time, there have been some notable examples of AI, or at least initial implementation of AI that grabbed a lot of enthusiasm, to the point where in the mid-90s there was an expected big rise of AI applications, which did not happen. That later was called the AI winter. So even experts who were working in the area were afraid of mentioning those two letters for several years, until in the mid-2000s, things started ramping up again. And then I was lucky to be at IBM at the time Watson was created. There was probably a reborn attention to what AI can bring to the table. But the technology has continued to evolving in different academic institutions and universities and different research labs. Right now, there's no doubt that it's here to stay, and it's actually going to change the lives of everybody. But we have seen very good examples all the time, and this is just a list of interesting examples that you may be aware of. Remember when I started university, ELIZA was a big thing. It was a little program that allowed you to have a conversation with a psychologist. It was kind of a mock-up, more made up really, but it gave us an idea of what it could mean at some point to talk to an artificial expert. Later on, yeah.
So the timeline you've provided us here, it shows where we are now with ChatGPT is available to public testing. So I'd like to have each of you answer in turn. Where do you think we are in the life scale of AI? In other words, the beginning, from the very beginning to, Terminator or, C3PO as an example of what AI could be at its peak. So where do you think we are in that life scale? I'll say on a 1 to 10.
I think AI has a different place in consumer and in business applications. We've come to accept it in robotic vacuums in our house and other applications that are single use where the control is very tight. In business, you have a much wider swath of opportunities to use it, which also comes the risk of bad data and training the models incorrectly to get to a result that you're not expecting.
Nitin?
Yeah, so in my mind, if I take a scale of 1 to 10, we're at 7, where the scale is exponential, right? So 7 to 8, the difference is the sum of 1 to 6, right? So every incremental improvement you see now is going to have a double impact than whatever we've had in the last 50, 70 years will happen in the next 3 years. The next 3 years would be twice of that, right? So we're actually very far ahead when it comes to where we are in the AI pipeline. Again, it was known as machine learning. If you think about machine learning has existed, and that's a term we've heard of a little more in the last 20 years, especially, right? So we went from knowledge to intelligence, and I think there's a big gap to bridge over there. So what we're seeing is a transformation of knowledge into intelligence. So the subtle derivations that you do, which we call human intelligence, that's beginning to show up now, and that's where the renewed interest is. But once that happens, the technology to actually create what we need, a Terminator, sort of existed, minus the subtlety, and now the subtlety is where the focus has shifted for the industry. So given Moore's law, yeah, I would say in 9 years, we should see a Terminator.
Wow. Roberto?
Well, I see 2 paths. One is which is continuation of the examples you see in the slide, where robots get more and more capable to the point where a car can be fully assembled by robots. But they're not going to go around and shoot people. Those are special situations where the expertise is higher than humans can do and more repetitive, more predictable, but I wouldn't worry about that so much. There's a separate path, which is what OpenAI has really opened the doors of, where everybody, all of us, can play with it and can use it to good and bad use. So we can use it, and just as an example, I can use it to write a resume, and I'm not good at writing it. Okay, ChatGPT does a better job. And that is going to also take away some roles in marketing, other places where you had to rely on experts. Now you can have a machine that is as good or sometimes even better. Is that going to be dangerous? Probably not. But if I use it to send misinformation also, then it can be really dangerous. And if that gets to a point where it can control points by itself, then it gets even more dangerous. So I think the important part right now is to understand where those control points are and make sure that there is no machine left alone making decisions. So ethical AI is a big movement right now. Make sure that software that is provided to run those machines is scrutinized, is controlled, is kept in check, and there's always a human supervision. Make sure that it doesn't ride off, hammock.
Awesome. All right, so each of you uses AI. Oh, sorry, here we are. I forgot to click to the screen, but here's where we are on the scale of maturity of AI. All right, now each of you uses AI at the companies you work for to help the logistics industry in various ways. So I'm going to let each of you take a minute here to explain how you use AI in your products and services.
Absolutely. I think we cheat a little bit over here. I mean, we called beans.ai 5 years ago. That was the domain name officially. But what we've shown on screen and what you're seeing in the slide is sort of an order flow, right? From people entering order all the way through to the order getting delivered. Now, as I said, machine learning has existed for the entire middle path for the last 10 years. Whether or not like everyone in this room knew it, but you've used machine learning or AI in route optimization, traveling salesman problem, ETA estimation, sequencing. All of that has been some parts of what you call as AI or machine learning, right? The 2 big focus areas for us, for example, right now are one is on the order entry side, right? These emails that you get to place an order or the phone calls that you get, can they be purely automated, right? Why does a human have to look at them ever, right? ChatGPT can understand your emails perfectly fine, summarize them, find out where the order has to go, where does it have to get picked up from. Everything can be done in an automated way. So for us, the entire order entry becomes sort of a big automation area today. But the other one is actually on the end side, which is on the POD side, right? So proof of delivery is a good example, where we started developing a system which measures the quality of images on a delivery, right? Now, that's a good system, and that's still machine learning. Where it becomes AI is the machine told us this is a bad idea. Instead, we started building, or the way it's written, it actually started building a database of all images to say it's a green door versus a red door versus a blue door. This wasn't an engineer who came up with the idea. It was a learning system on top of a learning system, which determined that building a database and providing preemptive knowledge to the driver is a better idea. And that's the amazing moment we're at, where we're not dealing with learning anymore. It's a system learning how to make itself better. And for us, so a big focus now is how do you do this end delivery predictions, but in a way where the system auto learns what to predict. We don't tell it. So the system can automatically say there's a front yard. We never even thought we should point out a front yard. But the system says, well, if you point that out, drivers perform better. Right? And that's sort of one big way in which we're using AI today.
Cool. Good. All right, Roberto, it's you
this
now.
one, we like to consider the driver at the center of his universe. So what we came up with is a system that allows the drivers to be consulted on, monitored, provided coaching, getting feedback on driving risks that may be on the road, that the driver may be aware of or not. In the process of doing it, we want to first help the driver, make sure that he never gets into an unknown risk. Two, certify the driving skills and the ability to be safe at all times. And then rank or score different dimensions, and then provide reports, automated reports to the driver so he can see himself the progress over time. He can get suggestions on things to improve on, and then see how they evolve over time. And the third one is providing incentives. I had to go on a diet, like maybe some of you, and I did my best the first week. The second week was hard, and the third one I kind of slacked off. And I realized how difficult it is to be consistent, even if you want to. So sometimes you know what you need to change, but it's hard to change. And unless you get the rewards along the way, you may at some point not get there. What we do is estimate periods of excellence in the driving, and those accumulate the credits that can be used by the driver to get a free cup at Starbucks or dinner for two, depending on the amount of credits they collect. And that allows us to engage the driver, to continue to be motivated, and to have somebody who appreciates the good work done. On the other side, the information goes to the fleet manager, of course, but also to insurance. And there are programs that we are part of where the driver can trade in information about his driving skills and improvements for discounted insurance. And I think this is another longer-term engagement that is very important to bring into the market.
Excellent, thank you. And Stuart, tell us what you got going on over at Dispatch Science.
We believe that AI at the core of any TMS creates a competitive advantage to clients in this space. I remember when I joined this industry 20 years ago, the first client I walked into was a bunch of playing cards on the desk. Who remembers these days? With drivers and orders, and you kind of played roulette. Moving into servers that were in the back of your closet, and we had experience together many, many years ago, to now the power of the cloud and open architecture to be limitless at your disposal. We believe that all of these core functions allow Dispatch Science to make some great predictions that help your business create an advantage with your clients and moving forward. So I'll call out a couple real quick. So first and foremost is driver capability and driver availability. I've heard a couple times in the last day here that driver retention is a really, really hard problem that you guys are all fighting with. One of the reasons that we believe this is because drivers are not fully optimized and not utilized at their full potential. They also don't know their earning potential ahead of time. So by using AI and the prediction of previous orders and previous work that you have done, you actually can scale your fleet correctly so that your drivers are used at their full potential and they will stay with you for a longer period of time because they feel like they are earning their maximum amount of money. I'll take a concept from Nin on order entry. One of the wow moments that we've created is knowing what a customer is going to do on online ordering before they do it. If Judy always places the same order on Tuesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we see her log in, we can actually pre-populate the entire order, which creates this concept of how did you know what I want before I even typed it in? So this creates that connection with the customer, that you're understanding their needs before they even have spoken them to you. Lastly, I was in a warehouse in Salt Lake City last week. I don't get the chance as much as I used to, but I love seeing 10,000 packages skewed across a concrete floor, and it was very cold this time of year in Salt Lake City. And they looked at us and said, how do we do this? And I said, well, within dispatch science, we have two real ways of looking at this route optimization problem. A, how many drivers do you have? And if you have 10 drivers, let's create 10 routes that maximize the delivery times of everything in front of you. Or B, I have all these products and I only want my drivers to run 8-hour days. Now you need to go find Y number of drivers to fill the amount of orders you have. Because of the power of the cloud and the open architecture we've built, we can actually solve these problems now, where first-gen TMSs never had the opportunity to solve these hard problems because the capability wasn't built into the products and nor the core infrastructure.
So real quick, while we're talking, this is great. What I think is really fascinating here is that there was no overlap in what you guys are talking about. So there's so much going on in AI and so many new ways being found to use it every day that it's just great to hear so many different things. So here we go. All right, I'm gonna share a little bit about how I use AI as a courier company owner. I use ChatGPT to create stuff like resumes, or in fact, all the materials for this panel I created in ChatGPT. The marketing, wording, the questions that we have today, everything was all done in ChatGPT. And so I'm just going to give you some real quick clues and tips on how to get the most out of your prompts, because prompt engineering, or how you write your questions to ChatGPT, is the most important thing. The rule number one, and anyone that's been in tech for any period of time knows, the golden rule is garbage in, garbage out. If you give the computer bad data to work with, you're going to get bad results. And it's the same thing with ChatGPT. Good prompts get great results. So the first thing and the most essential part of any prompt is you have to tell it what to do. You have to give it a task. So you write a report, a project brief, a block of code, an email, or create a table. Then you have to give it a little bit of context about what you want it to do. So you give it a little background, goal, and the conditions in which it's going to be operating in. So I need a letter of recommendation for my salesperson who's been working for me for the last 10 years. And then you want to give it a little more to sharpen the focus. He's been working for me for 10 years. He's doubled my number of customers in that time. And so you got to cut it down, because AI without limitations will just try to include everything. And you get off topic that way. It's great if you can give it an example. Examples, and when you give it an example of what you want, you try to give it one that will guide the reasoning to come to the result that you're trying to get. You can, a really good thing is if you want it to write a sales pitch to a customer, and that you have one that's similar that you used in the past, you can actually paste that in and say, use this as an example. It's a great way of doing it. The other thing you want to do is you kind of want to tell the ChatGPT who you want it to be. Who is if you had a person doing this for you, who would that person be? They're an experienced HR person. They are, a PhD in physics, or whatever it is. You give them an example of what you want. Now you can actually use a person as your example, but they have to be a really famous person for it to work. And if you want to have fun with this, give them someone like Batman. It gets very, very good, very funny results. So if you say anyone famous, you could say, the Terminator. And, I'm sure it will end with, I'll be back. So then you want to tell it the format. And this is how you want it to end up. So is it a letter? Is it an email? It's a block of code, bullet points, or a table? For tables, you really want to tell them like what are the columns, and you'll get, again, it's just giving it what you want so that you'll get better results. Now this is the fun part. Because AI is kind of trying to fool you that it's a human, you want to tell it the tone that you want it to use. So you use adjectives to describe how you want to sound. Witty, confident, professional, formal, casual. I like irreverent is one of my favorites. And then you sort of give it the feeling that you want to be expressed in the end product. So there's a lot of great places. You can get more information on this. There's a free course at learnprompting.org. And there's this guy where I learned a lot of what I know from is Jeff Sue. He's on YouTube. His videos are really short. He talks really fast, so I like him. And he's got all kinds of really helpful stuff, especially around the prompting. So, moving on.
Can I actually add something to what you said?
Oh, absolutely.
So I'll try to put it in context of everyone. Hopefully the audience can connect with this, right? One of the big questions that we've been asked is like around invoicing, something we introduced in our product recently, right? And the biggest feedback we've heard overall on the invoicing today is we want invoices in N different flavors, right? We wanted by the month. Oh wait, it has to be by the month, but East Coast and West Coast, can you separate it, right? Now this is where ChatGPT, what Andrew just talked about, becomes really powerful. You can give it your data, and you can say slice it and dice it and combine it in these amazing ways. So the way you would communicate and give us feedback to a software, you're actually talking and you're telling it, hey, you know what, make like 3 different invoices, keep Midwest different, keep Mideast different, keep East Coast different, and do it monthly. And hey, how about this? Like take the big trucks and the small trucks and separate them out. And it'll actually give you N number of invoices with you not having to write a single line or click a single button. Right? And that's where things become insanely powerful once you start getting to ChatGPT with your own data.
And something that I just learned today, so short prompts don't really give you good results because they're too vague. I learned today that the average length of a good prompt is 400 words. So it's, it's making a good prompt is almost kind of a job in itself, but what you end up with would have taken you 4 to 6 hours to come up on your own, which is...
It's funny you say that. I don't use ChatGPT directly, but I use a product that's built on top of it. I use Grammarly, if you guys have heard about it in the market. It's an add-on to my phone, my email, every website that I touch. My wife definitely knows when the messages from her are written by that personally directly. But I think that interesting concept of 400 lines, because I'll write my whole email, I'll put a bunch of stuff in it, and I was like, improve this. And that becomes like the much cleaner version of what I'm really trying to say from a raw, just like get it out of my head and into text format.
Yeah.
And if you're from California, you can actually ask it to politically correct your email. It's amazing, right? You can say, can you make this politically correct or correct in today's world?
So you're saying a guy from New York like us, we don't care about that?
Change the pronouns. It's going to basically make this California safe, as they'll call it.
All right, guys, so this is where I want to go next is, where do you see us going in the next 5 years? Nitin, you already said it's 9 years to perfection, so what do you see coming in half of that?
Yeah, I think in the next 5 years, we'll see a lot more automation, right? So for me, AI is a friend today, right? It's getting embedded in very small places, and people are finding out where to embed it, right? From 100 people doing it, you suddenly have 1 million people finding where it can be embedded, right? So I think just from a pure basic interaction point of view, you're going to see flavors of AI in everything you touch and do, right? Any function you're trying to do, there's going to be an assistant on the side, which will take away all the tedious work that we were doing for the last whatever years, right? So I think in the next 5 years, that's what you'll see, is that on one end, there's going to be a lot of robotics and automation, right? Stuff which is very high tech, probably military first, always starts with military first, and then come to sort of the consumer side, right? But on the consumer side, what you'll start seeing is any mundane work you were doing in 5 years, that will likely disappear, right? There will be nothing repetitive that you will be doing, and it's just going to lead to this crazy efficiency boost, right? And so to me, that's sort of where I see this going. In logistics, especially if we look at it, as I talked about, like, reporting and all, which is something we do every day, dispatching, on-demand dispatching, we're like, how many dispatches do we need? How do we manage them? If it's repetitive work, which has the same pattern, the machine will do a better job than you do. That's for sure. right? But anything where you need innovation, where you need creativity, even that becomes questionable, but I think where a human knowledge comes in, machines will take a lot of time to get to that knowledge. Someone has to document everything that's in their mind. When the documentation is complete, which is my estimate is about 9 to 10 years, is when things become really powerful. Until then, these are your assistants. In the next 5 years, yeah, just enjoy the fun.
Roberto?
Yeah, really what I think is a major change is the fact that most of the most advanced AI you can use today is you can talk to. You know, in the past, if you wanted to use AI, you had to be a scientist and have a very sophisticated coding skills in order to know how to run machine learning, how to train the models properly, how to evaluate them, and then finally have something that works. Now you just tell what you want. And I think this is a mind-blowing change. The same way we can correct our emails or so, you can ask it to do things for you, say, think of a robot or so, just by explaining it as you would do to a human being. You know, speech recognition has been in the making for a long time. I was one of the first experiments in the 80s, and it was not great. It was working, but it wasn't great. It started working well in the early 2000s, and then you started seeing examples like Google Assistant, Alexa was first, and Siri, that introduced the notion of being able to talk to a machine, but the limitations were still pretty severe. So you could not ask for anything. You could ask certain things, and you could expect most of the things to be responded properly. Now the openness door, the door is completely open. You can say whatever you want, and the expectation that you get understood is very high, and the likelihood is also very high. So that makes AI available to pretty much everybody. And there's a lot of jobs, including insurance, where you have to rethink everything that we're doing and those we're using. Should I use a different scheme, a different robot that can help me do this? And then it becomes a much more collaborative environment. Instead of you using a tool, you are working together with the tool, and tool enhances you. It's like an extension of your brain, your arms, your abilities. I think that's extremely powerful. And the fact that you don't have to have a PhD to do that is great.
Yeah. Stuart, what do you see?
Can I see a show of hands who was in Vegas last week for Manifest? Anyone in the room? A couple people in the room. So the one thing that I saw there that I really think is going to change what we do is that last mile delivery. It's not just going to be our drivers and the cars. It's going to be the drone, which uses a version of AI to get itself from point A to point B. It's going to be the sidewalk autonomous vehicle that is bringing something from the door to your customer. Having those integrated into your fleet is really where I see our industry using AI as a next leg up. And having a TMS that supports the ability to adapt to these ever-changing delivery mechanisms, because I know most of the DMSs now probably don't have a little robot as like their dispatch icon, right? You drive a bicycle and a car and other things, but expanding your fleet into other delivery mechanisms is really going to allow you to scale and to deliver the pace of change that your customers are expecting to meet them and be the best partner you can be.
Great. So what advice do you have for logistics professionals looking to adopt AI into their operations? What's the best way for us to get involved with AI? Yeah, I'll start with you, Stuart, this time.
So on the plane here, I actually read a great article from Sandra Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and he basically said, don't use tech just to use tech. I'm an early adopter. I love buying the newest piece of hardware of anything, but don't just buy tech because it's cool. Find the business problem that you're trying to solve and find the niche product that solves that problem, that delivers ROI. That way, the team's going to have buy-in, the business is going to have buy-in, and you're actually looking to improve something day to day. And I think we've all given great examples on this panel of what that thing could be that makes your business important. I'm not here to tell you what it is. We're here to enlighten you and to think about what those could be.
Nitin?
Yeah, I would frame this the other way. So for me, it's like, one, be receptive to the change, right? You're sort of in the early 2000s movement with the computers coming in. Any company which thought computers were an enemy were left behind, right? And were very late to adopt technology and so on. AI is sort of that next pivotal moment. So if you think of it as something that can enhance productivity and be your friend, right? It's going to come no matter what, and your competitors are going to adopt it, and it's going to help their operations. Again, drones and robotic vehicles are a good example, right? They're going to come in. They should be a part of your fleet. I totally agree with that, right? And if you're resistant to that, it's a recipe for failure. But if you adapt it, it also means if you're one of the early adopters, it helps you. Don't adopt it exactly, just for the sake of it. But be very open to adopting it. Like, don't resist it because it's going to help you. So it's worth experimenting quite a bit. It's a good time to experiment to actually grow your business outside of a typical shell and get a leg up for the competitors. So one, be a little more experimental. I think this is a great time to experiment with AI, right? But more importantly, don't resist it. It's going to come in. The better you put it to use, the faster you'll move, and the more, everyone grows. This is not like a zero-sum game. It's overall going to boost the economy, unit economics, everything a lot more. So just, openly embracing it, I think is the best advice I can give.
Somehow that reminded me of when I was 10 years old, and somebody gave me a chemistry box with things, substances you could play with, and I started playing scientist, and all of a sudden I managed to make it explode. The good thing with AI is that there's nothing you can get hurt from. You can play with it, you can have fun. Some things may be disappointing. That's the most that can happen. So there's no risk of being damaged in any form. I encourage anybody to work with it, get familiar with the different models. Gemini from Google just came out competing with OpenAI, GPT-4. Microsoft is pushing its own Copilot. You can use it either to work on text, you can use it to generate code. Try that too, even if you're not a coder. It's amazing how easy it has become to get in that direction. And at this point, you also realize that it's a very level playing field for everybody. So if you want to be a good player, and you have to be part of the game. You cannot just watch. You have to get your hands dirty, play with it, and learn from it. And then you may step back, but at least you know what's going on or what can be done. It's extremely important.
Excellent. So, and this is a great segue into our next question. What are the risks involved when using AI, and what are the pitfalls we should try to avoid? I'm gonna bring up one that I think is pretty funny. Is you got to check the results.
Yeah.
Don't just accept it. If you tell it to write a legal brief and use 3 citations, make sure those 3 citations are actual cases, because 2 lawyers have been caught up in that same trap. I always find that very amusing. As someone, I proofread everything that ChatGPT kicks out for me, and a great way is also if you're using it like Stuart does, where it is just correcting your grammar or whatever. One of the things I like to do is highlight changes in bold so I can see them really quick and figure out what it changed and make sure it didn't misconstrue a meaning. So Roberto, you want to start this one off? What risks having just told us there aren't any risks.
Well, the fact is that there is not just one AI. The one AI everybody knows about is dealing with text, human knowledge, and you can turn that around and do whatever you want. That one per se, I don't think is particularly dangerous. Although you could use it for, messages used to bring in, to confuse people. I don't want to be, get into politics or anything, but it could be used for misinformation, and that's a potential risk of AIs. And then there's other types of AIs used for operating items, vehicles and things. That's where things can get dangerous if they're not designed properly. And that's not so much in the hands of all of us. We cannot reprogram Tesla just to make a name and make it perform differently. There's a certain level of expertise and tools needed that is outside the common citizen. So that kind of AI that can lead to bad behaving objects is out of our reach. I think it's more about the community to come up with a concerted effort to create the standards, ethical standards that force all developers to adhere to, and then make it possible to examine from the outside how a particular AI model is working or going to work, so they can be analyzed, tested, verified, and used
Nitin, earlier you were talking about machines teaching machines, so it's like multiple layers of machine learning. Do you think there's a danger there in that the data could get bad? You know, again, the garbage in, garbage out, if it gets confused and goes off on the wrong track, is there a risk there?
There is. I mean, at least in today's world, I mean, it is, you know, I don't know if that's the right sentence, but jack of all trades, master of none, right? And we think it's a master of everything. That's the worry, is that it's a system that you'll get addicted to very quickly, and you'll start depending on it without actually proofreading it. There's sort of two big risks, right? One is, yes, your dependence increases every day, and you start trusting it more because it's doing 90% of the work right. The 10% it does wrong can be really, really dangerous, right? So a lot of, like, until it fills the knowledge gap, it really doesn't know everything, right? I mean, the simple way to think of AI is anything I've seen in history, if it's going to happen again or the similar circumstances are presented, the outcome is expected to be the same, and that's all machines are trying to do. So if they have enough history, then they know what's going to happen in the future when they see a similar situation, right? And this has existed in mathematics for hundreds of years now. In computer science, it's called linear regression, which was sort of the first version of this. And if anyone studied math, so for math, I trust machines a lot more, right? If you're running like route optimization, route planning, trust the math. In fact, I don't trust the drivers as much as I trust the math, right? Because that's what machines are really good at, and AI really helps over there. The thing that scares me more is things like ChatGPT, right? Words are way more powerful, and when it messes up, it's going to mess up big time, right? And we've seen it, you know, again, we've seen this in legal cases, we've seen this in political speeches now where people are using ChatGPT, and they have no idea what it wrote, and is very wrong. So at least in the short term, I think just proofreading, not just like generative text, but anything that the machine is doing, like double checking that is a good idea. Or be confident to provide it enough knowledge, right? So if you're not giving the machine enough knowledge, what you're going to get back is going to be, well, suboptimal and possibly very wrong.
I think I'll bring this back to kind of what we see in the day-to-day of what we're doing with dispatch or with ETAs, right? I'll reiterate, garbage in is garbage out. You're looking at a training set of data of have you delivered that same job from the same place in the last 5, 10, 8, 15 years, right? And what has happened around that? Have you made it on time? What are the traffic patterns been? What are the weather patterns been? When you start layering all that other external environmental and multi-party data, you actually can forecast what's going to happen much better. So starting with the foundation of good data, the data you trust that you've put in your system that has been vetted, as well as I wouldn't say kept out of human hands, but you know, at least categorized in a way that we know what we expect in a given field, so that we can use that to predict what's going to happen next. So I think when we think about the problems we're trying to solve and keep them very narrow and focus the mass data set in a narrow problem, you can really start trusting what's going to happen afterwards.
Awesome, that's great. Okay, so what do you think of the most effective ways our members can leverage AI technology to be more competitive in the marketplace? And I think you said the big one is don't ignore it and accept it because it's coming. So beyond that, what do you got for us?
You know, it's starting with a partner that's more of your partner than your vendors, right? You rely on your clients to give you work and do work for them, and you hope that becomes a partnership in bi-directional manner. It should also happen with the vendors that you're relating to anywhere in this room. So you should be working with them and leveraging them and trusting them to break down the walls, the silos within your organization to build a place of trust that you can create a competitive advantage around. We've heard this concept that data is the new oil. What does that really mean? That really, for me, means that the four walls within your office no longer exist. You can share data with your partners upstream and downstream to create a sticky situation that's hard for you to remove. That becomes a competitive advantage than being replaced from someone that's doing the same service because they can't provide the same infrastructure. So having a partner that has AI and has these capabilities at their core of their product is crucial for building the business into the next generation.
Excellent, thank you. Roberto?
Yeah, I like that analogy. I think the fact that I think we're going in a direction where data is going to be shared more. Yes, it is valid, and the first intuition would be, I want to keep it for myself and not share it with anybody. But that's a mistake. In this case, controlling it and being able to keep feeding your collection and processing it, and then creating derivatives and sharing them with your partners makes you a lot more powerful, and them too. And then the collaboration becomes a lot more strong and reliable.
So sort of like increasing the size of the data pool that you're using. Yeah,
and
great.
even get decision points that you're making based on the data, they can be shared because the other partners understand where you're coming from and why you made the decision, and it becomes for them to decide whether to trust you or not.
Yeah, that's great. Nitin?
Yeah, I think it's two things. One is, again, I think it's sort of following the same line of thought, which is data is the new oil, right? Which means you need more and more data, right? So, as you work with your partners, with vendors, one thing you need to make sure today is that you never lose data, right? Anything and everything that's happening in your ops world, right? Driver walking one step on your payroll, walking, not driving, should be in your database. Again, because you're leaving money on the table at this point, right? So the more data you get in, the better off you are. The more controversial thing over here, and I think which is critical to CLD as an association, is would people over here be willing to share data with each other, but not in a direct form, right? So now we're talking about an actual currency exchange in terms of data where, you have drivers going and making deliveries, right? We are, for example, deriving the door colors today, right? That these doors are red and green, and we had our first failure when the door color changed. And the driver's like, you said it's a green door, now it's a brown door. Well, doors get repainted, and it's a hard thing to learn. But other clients are making deliveries to the same place. We'll need a lot more collaborative effort to get the data to a scale where the AI starts making sense, right? In silos, it works, but it's not going to hit the level of awesomeness that we're all hoping it to, right? So pooling in the data, and we'll see a lot more projects come in. We're going to announce stuff. I know we're not doing it here, but where we're inviting companies to come and say, okay, we'll pay you. We'll do stuff free for you if you are able to contribute your data into this pool. It's anonymized. There's no PII. It's all secure. But we need that data pooled in for these systems to really become powerful. So we can do it in sort of small spaces, and we can do it well. But to really get the power of AI going from like a 50% efficiency to like 95% will require either Amazon, which can single-handedly do this because they have that volume, or a lot of like companies collaborating and getting to that volume. That's going to be critical.
Interesting. That's great. So now it's your turn. Do you guys have any questions for our esteemed panel here? Anyone? Yes.
Type of stuff if we don't have that information given to us in the first place.
I'm going to disagree with you. Do you know the GPS locations of your drivers in real time?
Yes.
You have those data points. That's almost the most important data right there. How fast your drivers are going, where they're getting hung up, where they're getting slowed down, how long they're spending at a stop. That's incredibly valuable data, right? Isn't that sort of what you were just talking about? Yeah.
I understand that part of it. That's not the part of the data I'm talking about. I'm talking about the data of maybe getting a phone call, an address or an email address for a certain person so that we could make a preemptive call or email to the customer saying, hey, we're about to make a delivery, or we're going to get there, or something like that, because
Correct. So I'll give you an example.
We don't get that information passed to us, so is there a way for AI to help us get that type of information?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can give you an example around that, and that's not, I mean, part of it is AI, part of it is not, but I can't name a client. But what happens today is that if an apartment number is missing, and the driver is going to this apartment complex, that delivery is going to fail, right? Either the driver is going to get there and try to call the customer, most likely not going to pick up the call, right? That's where you preempt and call the customer through an automated system saying, we have a person on the way. You give us the apartment number or we abort much sooner in the delivery life cycle. Now, learning those patterns through AI is yet not there. I think we're getting there. We know those deliveries will fail. I don't think it's AI yet. It's more data play today.
I mean, it's anomaly detection, right? You got to find out what the anomaly is and then
What
flag
the-
it so a human at
exactly.
this point can take action and,
On the anomaly.
and solve. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there are more fixed patterns right now. I can imagine, yes, exactly. Eventually, you put all of this into a big data pool. So if you take all your failed deliveries and put it into one system, the system can come back and tell you why your deliveries are failing. That's where AI kicks in. Now, you know the answer to why they failed, right? Is it because GPS is failing? Is it because the address data is bad? Is it because address data is old, right? That's what the system will come back with, and that's where the AI kicks in. And then you need a completely different system potentially to fix that problem. And that's the non-AI part to some degree.
Go ahead, Mark.
You talked earlier about using some of the AI tools, for example, to automate like fax input to orders or email input to orders. Do most of those tools also tend to have valid values or bound range checkers in them such that I wouldn't want to turn an AI tool loose on a string of emails, turn them into orders, and accidentally create a 3,000-mile run when it was supposed to be 3 miles. So what sort of error checking and validation could also be automated, or are we going to have to verify every little field in the generated order? Because at that point, you might as well just put it in.
Correct.
I think those are two parts of the same, a different question, right? The first question is, are we actually parsing the email, the fax, the text, the phone call correctly? I think we all in our daily lives talk to some voice assistant, and it gets it right a lot of the times, but sometimes you ask it to play, Bruno Mars, and you get something that's in Spanish that you've never heard of it before. So when we think about that, that's one thing that can cause that issue. The second is, you have to build it within your business parameters. If your territory is San Francisco and you're never going to do a delivery in Phoenix, then that's a flag of your TMS to actually say, this is an invalid order, and I'm not going to price this and not select it to happen. So I think that you got to look at the areas of responsibility and separate where both of them have to sit.
Yeah. For me, it's statistical analysis, right? It's the same argument that we have today in autonomous cars versus human drivers, right? Is how many mistakes do people who are reading those emails manually today make versus how many the machine is making? Because that number is also non-zero, right? Enough typos happen in the system today. So the aim over here is to make sure the AI system has a higher or a lower error bar than a human. And once we hit that, then that's an acceptable risk in some sense because you're going to make that mistake or more mistakes the other side, right? In cars, that's accidents counted, right? Humans versus machines. In an automated email parsing system, it would be how many times did the machine misread this? And coupled with business rules, I think that number can be really, really small today.
And as a courier company owner, my thought on this, as I have envisioned this coming to be, is my thought would be, you get the email that says what they want, and then they immediately, in 5 or 10 seconds, are going to get an email back saying, this is what I'm thinking that you want. Is this correct? To which they would say yes, and then the order gets booked at that point. Yeah, because like I said, at this point, you got to kind of double check. You can't really, we're not at that, right? Do we all agree that we're not at the stage where we just blindly accept the results that we get from a large language model?
Yeah, for a good part, but in some cases, like parsing, for example, today is a well-solved problem. So I think there's enough academic work which says which things are solved to a degree where you don't have to worry, right? And a lot of things are not solved to that degree, right? So parsing is a problem which has been attacked for the last 30 years. And now it's gotten to a point where with the recent GPT models and Gemini, we're talking about almost zero error at this point.
Yeah, this is another aspect that I think is important. GPT, large language model is a large language model, but it also using a federation of smaller models. And most of the companies are working on tightly controlled small models specific to a particular task that are specialized in that area and can give you a lower error rate than the larger model. So there's all kinds of techniques today to make it look like a single model that you talk to, but in reality, once it defines what is the aspect that you want to cover, there's a specific model is trained with very clean data, highly reviewed, etc., that provides a much lower error rates. That's ongoing, and we will see more and more of it.
Excellent. I think we have time for one last question. Anyone else? Anyone got a question?
Thanks. You guys talked about the positive aspects of how AI could help our respective businesses, but what are some of the potential risks, pitfalls, displacements, the Terminator aspects of AI that we should also be focusing on in the horizon that could not necessarily be something that helps, but might be something that displaces or disrupts?
I think one area that we've seen and we've put out ourselves but had a very low adoption rate is true automatic dispatch. We said on the stage here already that math models are the easiest thing for these machine learners to solve. But giving full control over every order to be dispatched is really hard. It also is scary to lose what could be the most pivotal person in the organization on a dispatcher who knows your customers, who knows your drivers, who knows the city, he knows expectations, or he or she. And displacing that person is a really big change in the mental state that a lot of career owners deal with. So what we've seen here is a supplement to that, which is using assisted dispatch models to increase the horizon of view that a dispatcher has to actually supplement them and maybe make a lead driver or a warehouse manager a really good dispatcher for trying to find someone that knows the city and knows your customers to the T.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for coming out today. I'd like to thank our great panelists, Stuart, Nitin, and Roberta.